last-minute shakeup at 5:30 a.m., laundry situation not good. And when your focus is on helping your clients, it's easy to forget about yourself. But NASM knows trainers.
Morning ride is okay.
And staying in front of the day isn't always as simple as 1, 2, 3. So when the unexpected has you pressing pause,
what's the latest on creatine?
I'm going to get back to you on that.
Let NASM1 help you press play. Visit NASM.org to sign up for a membership today.
You're listening to the NASM CPT Podcast with Rick Richey, winner of the Share Care Emmy Award for Social Storytelling and the official podcast of the National Academy of Sports Medicine.
Hey y'all, and welcome to the NASM CPT Podcast. My name is Rick Richey, and today I have the absolute pleasure of having a guest on the show today. And the reason why this is such a pleasure for me, so I have been a fitness industry entrepreneur for a while. I just signed a lease on my 6th gym location as I'm starting to build the brand of gyms that I have here in New York City. I'm very excited, and I feel like I'm very proud of myself. I'm well accomplished, but dang it, if there aren't people out there who are just doing it bigger and better, and this is the opportunity, this is the moment for me to receive inspiration, but also for you, because I don't know if I've met many trainers out there that have been like, no, I'm just good. I want to be a trainer. I feel like everybody at some point in their head, at least, says, maybe I want to own a gym one day. What would that be like? And I've had the conversation on the podcast before. It ain't everything it's cracked up to be, but when it's good, it's good. And when things go well, they really go well, and it's enjoyable. But there are challenges that I think that a lot of times we just, we have our rose-tinted glasses on, and we see the silver lining, but we're not looking at the potential cloud that's there. So to be very specific, to be very detailed, to be very intentional, I want a gym because, and these are the challenges that are there. This is the financial cost. These are the problems that could happen. These are the benefits, the glory that can come from it. But you gotta take all that into account and see if the juice is worth the squeeze. Well, there's a guy that's on the show today who has just been squeezing the juice out of the gym business for a long time now, and we are absolutely honored that he's taken time out of his day and his schedule to have a conversation with us. I want to introduce you to the man, the myth, the mogul, the Mark Mastrov. Hi, Mark.
How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing really, really well, man. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, pleasure.
Yeah. So I got somebody reached out to me from NASM and was like, "Hey, Mark Mastrov wants to be on will be on the show if you're okay with it." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Of course I'm okay with it." Your name, listen, I've been in the fitness industry since 2002. So I've been in it for a long time, and your name was around when I started. So give us a little bit of background. The people that are listening to it, maybe who know who you are, the people that don't know who you are. Who are you, and how did you get started in this business?
All right, long story. I'll try and shorten it down for you. Like you, I started off as a trainer. I kind of walked into a gym to buy a membership. The guy behind the desk turned out to be the owner. He asked if I wanted a job, and I said, well, I really have another job. He said, well, look, if you work here at least 8 hours a week, you get a free membership. So didn't have a lot of money at the time. That sounded enticing. So I took a job as a trainer, working 8 hours a week. I used to work like Wednesday nights, 6 to 10, and then I would come in on the weekends, pick up 4 or 5 hours to hit my 8 hours a week. He gave me a book on, at the time it was a Nautilus strength training, if I remember right.
Oh, yeah.
So I read that book, and then I was an official trainer. So I probably went in and had no clue what I was doing. I assume I probably blew out about 500 people's backs by the exercises I made them do, not knowing what the hell I was up to. And slowly, progressively, learned how to exercise people properly, finding out that nutrition was a key component, but trial by error in the early days. Eventually, that led to probably about 6 to 9 months later, a gentleman came in to buy that gym. And the manager owner at the time said, hey, this guy, Mark, might be the best person I have here. He doesn't work full time, but if you can convince him to go full time, he could be a great manager. He came to me and I said, look, I got another job. I'm really not thinking about being a full-time gym guy. He said, well, look, what if I made you a partner? And that caught my attention. The investment was low at the time. It was like $15,000. I didn't have it. My parents didn't have it, but my grandmother had a little bit of money. So I asked if I could borrow from her, which she agreed to. And she kind of gave me that seed capital, which I invested into that little gym and kind of took off from there.
That's amazing. How much equity did you get for the $15,000?
I think 15,000 at that time bought me like 10% of the gym.
Son of a man. Oh, I wanted so much more for you. Well, it seems like you made a lot more out of it. Did that gym, that particular gym right there, was that something that ended up growing into something bigger, or was that just like, that's my first venture, and then you left that to go and explore other options? How did that work?
Yeah, so the gentleman who bought the gym wanted to build a software system for the fitness industry. He had done it for the automotive industry and thought that we could build something for the gym business. So that was his main focus. It wasn't gyms. So he brought a programmer in, and at night I would work with this programmer who taught me how to code in what at that time was called DBase. So we worked in DBase and learned how to kind of slowly build a front end system, which made me think really hard about how to operate a gym efficiently. We developed that for probably a year or two, eventually moved it into a software called Unix. And we developed a Unix program that we took to market probably, I think, our second year in. So I was running the gym, learning the gym business, developed this software, and then we went out. At that point, I was then able to buy more of the gym over time. So I think at that point, I was starting to get towards control of the gym, but he was owning more of the software side. So I started going door to door, selling the software to other gym owners. Many of which needed something for a front end system. There wasn't anything at that time. But quickly, as soon as I would install it, they would say, hey, how can you help me run my gym? I'm not doing well. And a couple of those gyms ended up throwing me the keys saying, look, I'm losing so much money here, you can just have it. So that started growing the gym business while I was selling the software side. And then after we got to a point of maybe having about 10 software systems out there, I think I, at that point, owned around 3 gyms. I went to my partner and said, look, I really love the gym business. I don't necessarily love the software business. Why don't we split apart? So I then took the gym business and he took the software business. My partner at that time spun off 100% over to the software side, and I kind of started growing the gym business and brought in a partner named Leonard Schlem, who became kind of my quasi mentor, CFO, Harvard MBA in finance, super sharp guy. And the two of us started growing our business.
Oh, that's brilliant. You had mentioned something about these other gyms when you're going door to door, and they were like, hey, it's just not working. Now, I don't know if the software that you had was enlightening for them, where they're like, hey, we're losing a lot of money. And so they're asking you these questions. The reason I bring this up is because of how I introed the show. And Mark, there are a lot of people who want to open gyms. There are a lot of people who are like, oh, I can't wait. I'd love to be a trainer. I can't wait to open a gym. I want to be a gym owner. It's not always sunshine, right? It's not. There are challenges there. What do you say to people where, I don't ever want to discourage people. I want to encourage them to do what they want to do, but I also want to be very realistic when I talk about this process. What do you say when people, because I'm telling you, these are all personal trainers mostly listening to this show. You may have to burst some bubbles, but it's the realism that goes along with it. What do you say? Like, how do I encourage and also, maybe make the glass a little clearer rather than rose tinted?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. It depends on what the individual is looking to invest in, whether they're thinking about buying something on the lower end capital investment wise, such as a franchise, maybe an F45, a CrossFit, maybe getting involved in a personal training studio. It really just boils down to where they're focused and what kind of capital they can deploy, and then how they want to get after it. I think if you're going to go more towards a gym, you want to open a franchise, you want to open say a Crunch franchise or a UFC Gym franchise, that's going to need more capital, and you're going to have a stronger balance sheet. So if you have the capital, if you have a partner that wants to back you and support you, that takes you into a different realm. And if you haven't run a business before or operated a business before, don't understand P&Ls, don't understand how to raise capital, it's a lot of learning that you need to go through maybe before I recommend you step into that arena. But again, if you want to start small, you can get into an F45, you can get into a CrossFit, a personal training setup, and slowly learn a business where maybe you don't need quite the amount of capital to get started, but at the same time, there's not as much pressure. where you're not having to sell thousands of memberships, you're having to sell hundreds of memberships in order to get to a profitability level. But it's something I could talk about for hours. It would be more like, okay, what gym are you thinking of owning? And then I'll kind of give you my high level of do's and don'ts.
Gotcha. And do you think, like, one of the benefits of potentially buying into a franchise is that the systems are set up, right? Like, and you open your own gym, and like you said, you don't have any background. You don't necessarily know what your training KPIs are. You don't know what a P&L sheet is. You're kind of unaware of it. At least going into a franchise, they were like, here is how you do it. So that might be one of the things that makes it a little simpler to go through.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the franchise system is one I always kind of let people know is probably the best entry. They're going to give you a lot of insight, support. There's a network of other franchise owners that will help you if needed. You can train with. The company's going to give you good training. You got a brand and everything in place, but there's still a lot to learn if you're going in as the first timer, if you haven't done it before. So something to think about as you kind of get in there.
Yeah, very good. I also tell people if you're working as a trainer and you've not worked as a manager, maybe you're at a corporate gym, you probably need a little experience working with other trainers, working with, the data systems that you were talking about selling, right? How do I go in? How do I even use the software for the gym? What are the systems that are in place? Because if you're working at a corporate gym, chances are systems are in place, and you need to pull from that system to have a good idea of what it is that you want to do or what you should be doing if you want to open your own gym. So I think that these are valuable insights. So can you just do this? So a lot of people, let's say they may not know who you are. So now we're talking about gyms, and I really talked you up because I was like, he's got a lot of things that a lot of things that you own. What are some of the businesses and brands that you're currently a part of or have been a part of throughout the years?
Well, I mean, the first company I started ended up becoming 24 Hour Fitness, which we grew from that one location, eventually to about 450 locations over probably a 20-year period of time. Initially grew it for first 10 years. I think we opened around 34 locations, strictly from cash flow, never borrowed any money. The profits that we would generate from one club would go to the second, those two would go to the third, et cetera. So we grew it up to about 34 locations. Then we went and raised some capital and kind of supercharged the business. We were able to acquire and merge in family fitness centers led by Ray Wilson, and built a kind of big base off of his clubs and our clubs, took us up over 100 locations, and then we grew it. And we went international. We built in Europe. We developed a platform acquiring several clubs in Scandinavia, then grew throughout Europe, eventually selling those clubs. I think we built almost 170 locations, either acquired or opened over about a 4-year period of time. Whoa. As I kind of barnstormed over there. That brand was called SATS, which is now a public company and still performing extremely well. Really proud of that company. And then we built the U.S. company, 24 Hour Fitness, in the U.S. and Asia to about 450 locations, which we sold in 2005 to Forstmann Little. I stayed on for a period of time, then I spun out. While I was building that company, we also opened up other brands around the world. So I have had the chance to build in probably around 45 countries right now. Had a lot of fun internationally. In the U.S., after I left 24 Hour, after I completed the sale and stayed on the board for a while, spun out, and then Jim Rowley, Mike Feeney, and I went and acquired through bankruptcy with Angelo Gordon Crunch, which we've now grown to a very large brand, about 520 locations of owned and franchised, and continue to grow. We opened up UFC gyms with the Fertitta brothers and Dana White, which we now have about 170 locations around the world and growing, among other brands. But for me, I just really enjoy building and developing and taking something from ground zero and seeing it, mature, and watching the team kind of build it. I've had the pleasure of working with some really, really talented people that have been able to take some of these brands and bring them to life and grow them in a big way. So to me, it's always about team. It's not about an individual. It's not about me. As I've said many times, I kind of believe in the upside down pyramid where I'm at the bottom and I'm supporting everybody above me, not the other way around. So my job's to do what I can to help everybody push the ball down the field and continue to perform at a high level.
Oh, that's great. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in just a moment. This episode of the NASM CPT Podcast is brought to you by NASM One, the membership for trainers and coaches. Members enjoy unlimited access to hundreds of career resources. Get the Edge app to schedule and program clients. Enjoy half off all certifications and specializations, access to free CEUs, and more. All of this for just $35 a month. Go to nasm.org/membership to learn more about NASM One. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, having the great opportunity to speak again with the man, the myth, the mogul, Mark Mastrov, who is here talking about really his journey and building the businesses and the brands that he has been a part of. Now, I find this really inspirational as somebody who is in the process of being a business owner, a gym owner. But here's one thing that I think is really important, because this is the NASM CPT podcast. So I'm talking to a lot of NASM certified trainers out there. Mark, throughout the years, you've had, thousands of personal trainers throughout hundreds of different brands and locations. What's the value of education? Where does that fit in? Like, what is the value to you to see people like NASM certified trainers that are in your locations?
Yes, let me step you back a little bit. So in the early days, as we were developing our company, there wasn't an NASM out there, at least one of worth. And so we had to do certifications on our own. So we built our own certification kind of concept and curriculum and brought in a lead person, a guy by the name of Chuck Fields. And we would certify and train all of our trainers nationwide through our program. Now, as we started growing, we ran across, of course, NASM and Neil Spruce and Mike Clark, and immediately found that program to be light years ahead of anything we were doing. So we ended up switching over. Chuck kind of slid over underneath Neil and Mike, and we began using NASM as our certification. And everything in my bones and my body always told me that the key to our business was personal training and nutrition. It was really about getting people results and performance and educating our trainers, whether through NASM, through internal programs, through external programs, whatever we could do to continually educate people to do a better job at helping people achieve their goals was really kind of the lightning bolt that led to the key function of our business, which is retention. It's all around keeping the member. You can always acquire the member, you can always get them in to join, but you want to keep them long term. And what we found is that if a personal trainer was working with an individual, the likelihood of them staying longer was always greater. At one point, we brought in Bain Capital and said, hey, we want to do a big study around personal training. We spent a ton of money and spent years doing all this research. In the end, what we found was that if a member went through at least 4 personal training sessions with a personal trainer, the average life of them was 2.5 times greater than somebody who did not. So it validated everything that we believed into our core, that personal training, education was really the key function of one of them inside our facilities.
Wow. Why is there any reason that you think that kept them coming back, or does that just show a commitment? I mean, is it, the people that get personal training, are they showing that they're committed to fitness, or is it something about the personal training that inspires them to keep coming back?
Well, you're a trainer, once you build that relationship with the member, you're compelled to get them to come and work out. Like if I don't have an appointment that day, I may slough off. I may not go to the gym. I may find other things to do. But if I'm setting an appointment, I've got a relationship with my trainer, I've been training a lot, I feel like I'm learning, I'm getting results, I'm going to continue to go. And it also is part of that community, right? Where, Howard Schultz used to always say that Starbucks was the third place, home, work, Starbucks. We used to always tease Howard that no, the gym was the third place. More people would come to the gym than Starbucks. And so it's about community. And when somebody gets comfortable and they feel like they know people, kind of like you're coming into the Cheers bar and everybody says hi to Norm, it makes you feel as if you're part of that family there. And that makes it comfortable for you to stay long term. And I think the trainer is the first person that really touches you, gets to know you, and makes you part of that family, that community inside the four walls.
I like that a lot. I also like that when you get somebody coming into the gym and as a trainer, but even on their days that they're not training, you come in and you see your trainer and you get to say hi, and you get to make sure that your trainer sees you. look, I'm coming in on my own, not working out with you. That there's something about that, and there's a galvanizing effect that personal trainers have that help to fortify that relationship with the gym and with the individual. You've mentioned a few times already in the podcast, because you talked about education and we talked about personal training, but you also mentioned nutrition. What are some of the benefits of the nutrition that you've seen within the gyms? And within your gyms and different brands, do you have partnerships, nutritional partnerships, educational partnerships as well?
Yeah, great question. So I'll give you a quick story, then I'll step into the answer on who we partner with. But when I was a first trainer, very, very beginning, I had this woman I was training, and we worked out every day. I thought I was doing all the right things. And I think like on day 31, she came in very upset, crying, saying that she'd gotten on the scale and she weighed more than when she started with me, and she was trying to lose weight. And, my immediate reaction was, well, fat weighs, less than muscle weighs more than fat. Maybe you put more muscle on. I was trying to put my hand and head around it. And the more I thought about it, I started questioning her, well, what do you eat every day? She goes, what do you mean? I said, well, when you're done training, what do you eat? She goes, well, I go to McDonald's every day. I do a lot of fast food during the day. At home, I cook a big meal at night for my family and I eat. So I started realizing that nutrition was really the answer, that she was not eating properly. So I did a bunch of work, tried to study as much as I could, read a bunch of books. We didn't have Google at the time. And so I came back to her, we put a little diet together, and within 30 days later, she lost quite a bit of weight and was very excited.
Oh, wow.
So in my mind, I started thinking very early on, wow, I've got to have some kind of nutrition component to what we teach our members. Of course, I run across Neil Spruce, and Neil has a company at that time called Apex, which I immediately went to him and asked if I could acquire it. So we merged Apex in, gave Neil a nice piece of stock and some cash. And we merged it into our company, and then we made that a component of everything we did with every member. That nutrition was key. After we sold the company, Neil spun out and started .fit, and we again brought .fit into all of our platforms. So it's at Crunch, it's at UFC Gym, it's everywhere, and it's a phenomenal software, and it is about education. It's not so much about selling supplements. That's a nice side aspect of the business, to sell supplements, especially because all of Neil's is safe and NSF certified. But ultimately, it's around teaching people how to ingest properly into their bodies. And now we've got apps and all kinds of things that people can do. Take pictures of their food to see how many calories they're ingesting, how the macronutrients break down, etc. But I think nutrition is a big component of what allows people to find success. And as a trainer, I've got to know as much as I possibly can about guiding them in that direction and teaching them.
And I appreciate that answer. That's a great answer. I remember we had a client one time, and she was very similar to the client that you were talking about. And we asked, well, what are you eating every day? And she was convinced she was eating super healthy, and maybe it was healthy, but it's just highly caloric, because she was talking about, well, I'll go to Starbucks and I'll get a yogurt parfait. So at the time, the calories were not on the label. So I go and I look up the calories, and it's like a proper size but parfait, and granola is can be highly caloric, and so in the yogurt, and then it's got stuff in it, and with something like 700 calories. And here she is, like, maybe it's not unhealthy, but it is nutrient dense, and it is people thinking that they're making the right choices, the good choices, and the choices that are going to help them lose weight. And that's not always the case. Even believing you're doing the right thing doesn't mean you are doing the thing that's going to help you lose weight.
Well, yeah, and if you watch like Neil's podcast, he'll sit there and say, what's the worst thing you can eat? And it's like processed yogurt. We're talking about processed yogurt was something we all had in our diets for a long time, and now it's like you really need Greek yogurt, right? So you're slowly trying to figure out everything that you're trying to do in the right way. But we learn as we grow. We learn each year, we learn each day on things that we find out in the way that we should adjust. And you're right, granola on processed yogurt is probably the worst thing we can have.
Yeah. I also want to point out something you said, which I've heard so much, and I feel like in many instances, it's a little bit of cop out when there's weight gain or no weight loss, and that's why they're coming to a trainer for assistance. And the trainer says, well, muscle weighs more than fat, and let's just assume that you've not lost any weight because you've lost fat and gained muscle. First of all, if you have no way of measuring that, you're just talking out of the side of your mouth. And I find that to be, I don't know. I find, tell me what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, my story in the early days, I didn't know any better. So the only thing I could hold on to was, wow, you have been working out really hard and you've gained weight. What happened here? For some guys, of course, that's what you want. You'll train somebody and say, look, I want to put some weight on, I want to put some muscle on, especially athletes, younger athletes, etc. But when you get into this whole component of, well, how do we really figure out what you're doing? Skin calipers, measuring body fat, all the things we used to try to do with people. You learn over time that not all of that really is concrete evidence to what we're trying to achieve. And we found a lot of people weren't comfortable with skin calipers and measuring body fat. So you would bring in, systems like Staiku where they could stand on a scale and actually will measure body fat for you with your clothes on or not, and it gives you all the information you need. So, it's one of those ones where we're still trying to crack the code, but we all know if we're lifting heavy, especially men, there's a chance you're going to gain some weight if you're not dieting properly.
That's right. All right. So as we're wrapping this up, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say once again that we've got the opportunity to have Mark Mastrov here with us, and I want to be respectful of your time, but I do want to hear from you. What are some takeaways that trainers should have if they are considering like what it means to start their own business, to start, whether or not it's their own gym? Like, what is it that everyone needs to consider if they're going to start their own business, whether they're going independent as a trainer, whether they want to open a gym on their own? Just some considerations that it'd be nice to hear from you.
Yeah, so as we touched on before, a lot of it depends on the capital you have available to deploy, whether you've got a strong balance sheet or you've got a partner or a family member that wants to partner with you. And then you can enter into that particular kind of arena of capital spend. So if it's around an F45 or a CrossFit where you're going to be maybe $150,000 investment or less, what I always tell people is, how strong are you financially? How strong are you in marketing? Have you ever negotiated and signed a lease before? Do you have good legal advice, a lawyer that can help you navigate these things? Do you have good financial partners, software, et cetera? So again, like we talked about earlier, probably getting into a franchise system is a little bit easier because they can help you with all of that and support you, what software you should choose, how you should negotiate that, maybe give you some help on the lease, how to negotiate that to make sure you protect yourself. You don't want to sign anything personally. A lot of times what happens is when you're first starting out, landlords are going to say, I want a personal guarantee. If you take a loan out from a bank, I want a personal guarantee. You want to try and avoid that just in case we have another COVID shutdown, which none of us expected to happen. None of us expect to happen again. But if you've got a pandemic and all of a sudden your business is shut, there's a good chance that you're not going to be able to pay rent and you're going to have to shutter that business. You don't want to be personally liable for the entire remaining term of the lease or for the bank loan, et cetera. So you got to make sure you've got some strong systems in place and support in place for everything that you're going to focus on to open your business, whether small or large. I tell people that take classes. You can go online now and learn. You can take financial classes, marketing classes. With AI, you probably don't have to do as much. You can build your website with AI. You can spend your marketing with AI. You can do your research with AI. You can ask Chat GPT, hey, what don't I know about opening a gym? They'll probably tell you everything I'm telling you and maybe even better. So it depends on really what you're focused on, how much capital you've got, and what you're trying to grow. And if you say, look, I want to build a $20 million gym, it's going to be, okay, how much capital do you have to deploy towards that facility? And if you don't have it, then bring yourself to a level where you can get to. Now, the other question is, okay, how much money can you make if you're a F45 or a CrossFit person, or if you're going to open up a BJJ studio or a personal training studio? What kind of cash flow can I generate? And there it's kind of just math. Go to other facilities you've seen open and ask them, how you doing? How many members do you have? How busy are you? And if they say, look, I've got a BJJ studio. I've got 150 people in here paying me $150 a month. You can do the math pretty quickly to see what their revenue is. They've got some personal training in there as well. And then you can take a look at, okay, they've got rent, insurance, utilities, employee costs, how much overhead is there? Are they making money or not? And you can quickly say, not for me, very difficult business, or no, really great for me. I love this. This is what I'm passionate about. So you just don't want to be in a position where you're working, for a job, meaning I have my own studio and I'm making $100,000 a year in that studio, but I don't pay myself any money. So really I'm making $100,000. That might be fine. You're happy, you're excited, but maybe as a personal trainer, a top personal trainer, you're making that anyway. So you're taking on your own business to basically replace yourself and earn the same kind of income. So like I said, I could answer this for hours. It just depends on what the individual is looking to invest in. More than likely, if they've got a good, strong financial backer, you're looking at something normally under 500,000. So there's tons of concepts out there that you can get into, but you always want to make sure you talk to a bunch of others that have those concepts, if it's a franchise, to see how well they're doing before you invest.
Right. And a lot of that has to do also with where you are. So I've heard people that have, gone out on their own. It's a cool concept, but I feel like they're in the desert somewhere. Not like you at Las Vegas desert's pretty beneficial, but like they're maybe in a smaller town. The challenges are there. So a lot of it has to do with where you plan. Is there a market where you want to be? Right.
Yeah, of course. If you're in a small town and there's 15,000 people in there, there's probably not many businesses you want to bring to that market. More than likely, they have some little studio, some fitness gym already in place. So you want to be in a little bit bigger population area, I think, if you're going to launch something. So more, deeper suburban population base is always better. And then you have to look at the competitive landscape, and then you have to be prepared for somebody opening up across the street. So you can build your little facility and whatever it is, whether it's in yoga or Pilates is hot right now, whether you get into personal training studios, as mentioned before, whether you get into some HIIT training like the F45s CrossFit, whether you do a UFC gym, there's some smaller footprints they have that are really interesting. Crunch has a smaller footprint that's really interesting, but you've got to do all the research and take a look at all the franchise opportunities if that's the direction you want to go. And then again, it just boils down to capital and then what kind of return can you get? Are you in a market that has enough density of population, and do you have the skill and drive to make it successful?
Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. I really do appreciate it. And I know that the listeners do too, getting a chance to talk with you and kind of listen to your perspective on things and how you've built and grown your businesses. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. Like, subscribe, share with your fitness friends and family, and leave a review. Putting a comment in there, it helps people find the podcast a bit more easily. And if you want to reach out to me, you can hit me up. Do so on Instagram at dr.rickrichey or email me, rick.richey@nasm.org. Y'all keep inspiring people to fitness. Thanks for listening. This has been the NASM CPT Podcast.